joining me is my panelists, and every one of the panelists up here today are contributors to the website in either a podcast or an article or something we put up. We are Central Florida located. It's usually Orlando, Tampa, Winter Park area, east and west. And right, as soon as I sit down, I can introduce them.
Come on, Josh, come on.
I'm coming.
Josh, want to introduce yourself?
I am coming. Hold on. There we go.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's only 2:40.
Are we good?
There we go. Got it.
Hey,
Hey, you want to introduce yourself?
All right.
Josh?
Hi. I'm Joshua Jordan.
Sit on.
Also known as Ubernerd 527. I do. Hi. I'm gonna come up to the mic here. Hi. I'm part of the Arcade Archives and Zowie Krapowie. I'm also a local artist. I do a webcomic called Tales from the Game Grid. It's about a couple every month it comes out. I also do a podcast called both the Electric Circus and also Cartoon Connoisseur Theater, where we talk about all kinds of cartoony things. So yeah, it's awesome.
Go ahead, you're going to introduce the 52 now.
I don't think I can top that, guys. Ignore that. So, hi, I'm Andrew. I am co-host of The 52 Now on ZowieKrapowie.com. We're also on iTunes. Basically, it is a podcast where we talk about all things DC and Marvel Comics. I look ridiculous because I'm also, or at least I was for a long time, a real-life superhero called the Good Samaritan out in Los Angeles, California. But I'm now moving out to the Orlando area, where I'll be contributing more to Zowie and all the fun things we've got going on there.
Woo! Cheryl, do you want to introduce Pink Justice Cosplay?
Okay, I'm Pink Justice Cosplay, and so is Jason over here. And we make cosplays in the Orlando area and go to conventions around here.
And Cheryl also contributes to the Friday feature, which is on ZK every Friday. We take a local cosplayer and we do a podcast interview with them. And that's actually been going really good. That's what we've been working on now. Now, what we try to do is we come to cons, this is our third con with the website. We try to find local artists in our alley. We try to find cosplayers either online, on Facebook, or around the con, and we try to promote them. What we're trying to do is make an awareness that these folks work months and months and months on their craft and their art form, and we try to promote that as much as possible. We do interviews, we put their links to social media, we make sure everyone knows who their photographers are, what cons they're going to, where they're going to be, and really just trying to make awareness to make it less objectified as an art form. And through our podcasts on iTunes and on ZowieKrapowie.com and the ArcadeArchives.com, we are just trying to give a voice to the local talents. Now, we started back in March with the 52 Now was the first. Yes, it was the first thing on Zowie Krapowie.
Yeah, it was the first thing.
Before we even were at .com, we had a WordPress site. We usually talk about comics, pop culture, stuff like that. Andrew and I have been.
We've known each other.
We've known each other for a long time.
We met each other in Orlando. I was about to say here, but I meant to say in Orlando at Full Sail University.
Yes.
Back in the day, yeah.
And we do every week on iTunes. We have a comics podcast that we do, and Josh here is also a podcaster of several different shows that we do.
Oh, yeah.
And he's also, like you said, a local artist. Josh, you want to talk a little bit about what you do for both sites?
Okay. So I do, like I said earlier, I do a webcomic called Tales from the Game Grid. Think of it as a what would happen if the real world met the video game world and smooshed together. So it's a monthly comic, comes out once every month, and I generally just parody video games, ask questions like, what does Ganondorf do while Link is adventuring, or what would a surfing Pikachu actually look like? So it's all kinds of different stuff like that. And then from there, I started doing the Electric Circus with the founder of the Arcade Archives Network, which is Raygun. And basically we just talk about all kinds of things nerdy, which happens to mostly be about video games. We talk about all kinds of different video games and how it affects us and stuff like that. And then from there, I started a video series called Cartoon Connoisseur Theater, which we only did one episode, but it's it's a little more taxing because of my work schedule. So we decided to make it a podcast, and I think it's been going on very well. We've got, what, 11 episodes?
About 11
10,
episodes
10, 11 episodes in now.
What we've done.
Yeah,
With several different contributors from many different sites. We work with other local sites and local talents on WordPress.com, GeekCritique.com. We work with them, and...
They're not really local, though.
No,
Geek Critique is only in New York City.
In New York City, they come down and
It's
contribute
local
to
to
our
this
site.
hemisphere.
Yeah, the East Coast.
Yeah,
East Coast contribution.
Yeah.
So yeah, we started that up basically because I love podcasts, but I can't find a one specifically about cartoons that I really like. So I decided, well, let's do our own one. And so we're talking about all things cartoony. We had, what was it? We did my top 10 favorite Saturday morning cartoons. We did reboots because we talked about there's a whole lot of cartoons are being rebooted now. I can talk. Don't worry. So, you know, it was something very interesting, and I think we continue to do. We did, 3 podcasts that were about anime, and we still hadn't even scratched the surface.
I wasn't part of that.
Scratched the surface on anime. You know, we're going to be doing a lot more. It tends to usually be either a cool idea that either me, Dave, or our other co-hosts who unfortunately couldn't be here, Danny. It could have been one of our ideas of kind of a topic about animation and stuff like that. So, you know, we just collaborate, and hopefully we'll be doing a whole lot of really fun stuff for people to listen to.
Now, Josh is also a local artist who has been contributing to art for a long time, and that's something that another topic that we really try to press on ZallyKapowie.com and on their arcade archives. We're trying to give as many local artists a voice as possible. There's several artists here today that me and Andrew promote, one being Sexy Mario, John Lewis Draws Things, Handmade 3D, and Ransom Designs are all artists that we promote on the site. What we try to do is we take their art form, we present it in a way with a podcast interview with photos for their sites, and when they have a con or they have a convention or something, a new item or a new art form that they're working on, what we will do is we will promote them for them. A lot of these artists, even the folks here to my left, spend a lot of time and money doing their art form, and they don't have time to run a website, and they don't have time to really do a ton of things on social media or set up panels for cons and everything else like that. So what I tried to do with ZallyKapowie.com is do that work for them. That's how I spend my free time. I'll go to local comic shops, I'll go to any kind of con or try to find anyone else. I'll contact other local podcasts and try to do crossover episodes or anything like that, just to get the word out. I really go by the motto: if you're willing to promote yourself, if someone else gets in there and says your name so many times and helps you out, more people are more likely to hear it. We are a newer brand, we are a newer website and presence on social media, but even if you have an audience of 1,000 followers and I have an audience of 1,000, you kind of cross the streams in a way and let those people know who you are. And that's actually how we found Cheryl Isenberg over here for Pink Justice Cosplay. We met her at a con. We just interviewed her. And and she, when we started following her online, we found out that she was doing the same thing with local cosplayers, that she was meeting at the cons, she was promoting them through her website and showing people what she did. And you gotta be somewhere else?
There's a Matt Ryan.
Matt Ryan had one that I heard about.
Yeah, that's all right.
But
I don't think so, Mom.
when we met up with Cheryl, I did an interview with her, and then I quickly called her back and said, "Hey, you're doing this great thing on your Facebook, on Pink Justice Cosplay, and I think you could do more, and I think I could help with that process. And do you want to talk about a little bit of why you started promoting other cosplayers?"
Yeah, sure. I just really like sharing people who I feel like they put a lot of effort into their work, or if I think that they like really display a good vibe for the community, I really want to put them out there because I want more people to know about them. And it's really just, you know, I think that we all, as cosplayers, should support each other and make ourselves more known by bringing ourselves full circle and like putting us all out there for each other. And I think that I always like people who do tutorials and things like that, so I always put their tutorials on my page, or I'll put anything that they've done, like work in progress pictures or something like that. I'll really put them out there. And usually on Fridays, because that just keeps it organized so that people know when to check it out. So now we put it up on the webpage as well on Zowie Kapowie, so there's two places where they can be seen. They can be seen on my page, and then they can also be seen on Zowie Kapowie with their interview. So it's also, the interviews give them a nice way to actually get to know the person without having to like go to their page and message them constantly or something like that. It really gives them more insight into the person that's making behind all these cosplays.
We do the podcasting element and actually talking to people, because a lot of these folks no one talks to them. A lot of cosplayers, and you'll see it on major media outlets where they're just a picture with no name, no description of what they did. They don't get their story told. So we're trying to tell their story for them. We don't want to make it less objectified. A lot of it has become, if you go to like an IGN or Kotaku, they're like 150 cosplay pictures. But you don't know who these people are. They rarely even tell you who the character they're portraying. They just put what we like to call clickbait to get people to go to the website. And it's not really fair to the artists. All these artists that are up here in Artist Alley, they're spending their weekend, they spend their money to be at this con, to produce something for them, and they're more than just a picture or an art form, and a lot of these cosplayers put a lot of time and effort into it. We did a panel yesterday, which is the Heroes United Against Cosplay Bullying, and that was an amazing eye-opening panel that all these extremely talented cosplayers, nationally known and recognized guests of this con, still have the issues of not being recognized for their art form or their craft, and no one really listening to their story or being able to tell their story. And that's where, when I started the site, and it was right after MegaCon, because I found myself doing the same thing. I took all these pictures, and I wanted to interview and ask people, like, how did you make this? How did you design this? How long did this take you? Why did you do these certain things? And it's amazing when you start talking to any form of art that's up on that floor or at any con. These people all have a story to tell, and they want to tell their stories, and they're interesting. There's a lot of reasons why people get into cosplay. These two just ablaze me with how much passion, how much they love for their craft, and where it started from. And they just, instead of being like, well, we're better than these cosplayers, they're like, well, how do we bring everyone up with us? And these gentlemen to my right do the exact same thing. Josh is always telling me about other artists or finding other artists or training. He did it today during lunch. He's like, look at this artist, look what I got from them, and we're always trying to support them. And then Andrew here has been part of the real life superheroes for many years. Do you want to talk about that a little bit? I know that's very important to you.
Yeah.
And
Sure.
It's something that's not, it's misunderstood in a way.
It is, which is why we're such a good fit with Zowie.
We are.
Now, before we do that, I just want to get a panning shot. I have no idea. I don't know how it works, but it's something along the lines of this, I think, because this is the greatest crowd I have seen. This is. I don't know. I think I did it wrong. I don't care. So. Hi, you can come in, or not, it's up to you. So basically, the real life superhero community is something it's a subculture that's been going on for an incredibly long time. But it's really been more recognized since around 2003 or so. What it is, there's men and women all around the US, all around the world, who they create their own superhero persona. It's not a copy of any established IP. You know, you don't see any Batman I mean, you see some people who try to do that, but for the most part, it's all original characteristics, personas, whatever you want to call them. And they go out and they do homeless outreach. They work with non-profit organizations. We once worked with a group called Generosity.org, and they built because of us and the donations that we got, they built a water well for a village in Africa that will have clean drinking water for the next 20 years. So we do many, many cool things like that. It is a subculture, and it's one that people don't understand. They go, well, are you a vigilante, or are you punching people in the face randomly? And for the most part, that's not what's going on.
It's not?
It's not for the most part. I say for the most part because there's some people who...
Your life isn't the movie of Kick-Ass, right? Mark Miller did not write your life story.
Mark Miller did not write my life story. Actually, Mark Miller's gone on record saying that a lot of his ideas for Kick-Ass came from the real-life superhero community. But it is obviously very exaggerated. But all the work that those people do, there's a gentleman who's actually here at the con somewhere who goes by the name of just Superhero, Old Superhero. And he's helped put on Christmas toy drives every year for years. There's another guy named Master Legend out in Orlando. Handful of people just all over the nation who really do great, good works. And they do it on a very low budget, very small level, out of their own pockets. And it's extraordinary. If you want to find out more, you can, there's a documentary on Netflix. There's an HBO documentary called Superheroes. And I was actually in it for a blink and you'll miss it moment. You don't even hear me. I'm not even really that big of a deal in it, and it doesn't matter. It's a great story about what these people do and what they go through. So there's a lot of that going on around the world.
Yeah, we're hoping to work more with that community in the future with Kapowie.com and the Arcade Archives Network. Anyone who doesn't have a voice, we're trying to kind of project that voice a little bit farther. That's what we're trying to do with the podcast and the website. And we're starting here in Central Florida. We're all from different parts of the United States at one time or another. Actually, Andrew here comes in from Louisiana to help promote the cons and talk to people and help us produce content for Zowie. Josh here does the same. None of us are local to Tampa. We're close enough out of Central Florida. We do have a bunch of different projects going on. If you see the camera set up here, Josh here is actually shooting a mini doc for the Let's Mario campaign for Nintendo to submit for them, plus other projects down the road. You also do, you want to talk about the game search real fast? You do video games.
Yeah, we do a video game series. If you've heard of Let's Plays before on YouTube.
I've never heard of those. I'm joking.
Jeez. There's one on every panel.
Anyways, Let's Plays videos. Me and a whole bunch of friends, we always like to sit down and play video games and joke around. And one of my favorite things that I love is Mystery Science Theater 3000. And so we took those two things and mushed it together. So it's a Let's Play, but we're totally not being serious and beating the game at all. We're just playing, having fun, making fun of things, doing goofy voices, and just having a fun time. And then of course the most of the work we don't actually script the video game play because it's kind of difficult for some games to script it because you never know what's going to happen with video games. All the scripting goes into the skits, and we have fights over the skits. And they usually only are like about 5 minutes or so, so you blink and you miss it. But it's a lot of fun. So it's on.
You've been doing this for a while.
Yeah, we're almost at our 10th episode now. It's on YouTube. What's your game series?
What's your favorite one that you've done?
Favorite one that we've done so far. We did. Our first game was Shovel Knight, that was one of the games that we actually just bought just to play for that first episode. I didn't know how good it was, and that video actually is us playing the game for the first time ever. And so we turned it on, we started playing, and it was just like, whoa, this game's awesome, you know? We actually had to stop, and we're all like, oh man, we were actually kind of disappointed that we couldn't finish the game, but for time, we try to edit the videos to be about 30 minutes or so. Sometimes they're longer, depending, but for the most part, they're about 30 minutes. Recently we did Skylanders. We did Skylanders Swap Force. We did Final Fantasy Chronicles.
And that's all on your YouTube
it's
channel
all
and on the Arcade Archive.
Yeah.
And that's what he's filming for over here. Our other project goes back to these folks right here. We started a small mini doc live journal for Zowie Kapowie. That's going to be coming. Elements of it are going to be coming up soon. We are all going to Dragon Con very shortly, which is in September.
Yes.
So very soon. Very soon, and we're actually documenting. This is the first day of documenting their design and their journey from concept to physically making a cosplay, all the way through the journey up and going through Dragon Con. And hopefully we have that. We're hoping to premiere the actual doc at Chibi Pop Victory, which will be in Deerfield Beach in November? Is it November?
It's November.
It's November, at our next panel. Do you guys want to talk a little bit about why you feel as a documentary? I know Jason is very passionate about, you did a tutorial for us for how to use Warbler. Jason here is a master prop maker, and I can say master, right? That's flattering, right?
Sure.
Do you want to talk about why you think it's important that we're communicating through a doc style?
Yeah, I think, I know I've been quiet this whole time. What was that guy doing?
You have the most to say, that's why.
But
We're saving it till the end.
yeah, I haven't found a prop that I haven't been able to make yet, but I do run into problems all the time. I'm always trying to figure out a way to shortcut things sometimes because we're always pressed for time, it seems, for every convention that we end up going to. I think my long-time goal in I'm the second half of Pink Justice Cosplay. She's my wife, of course. She does all the sewing and the makeup and the painting and stuff, but I end up making all the little props because just about any cosplay you do, you end up having a weapon or a staff or just some ornament that goes on your outfit or costume, or a giant bomb or something. And sometimes those little things are what really catches the eye at first. When people walk by and see a costume, especially in a large crowd, they see Loki's staff bouncing up and down, like, oh, there's Loki over there, before they even see the costume itself. And then, of course, when you see the costume, it could be a really good costume, or okay costume, or someone bought it. But if it's a handmade weapon or a crafted item or something, sometimes people want to ask how they did it. And I think that's one of my goals, is I'd like to eventually get to the point where I answer those questions for people that want to figure out how to make any type of craft. I mean, it is an art form in itself, and we did start as a very small, simple tutorial on how to use Warbler. It was literally one piece of armor, and over time I would like to maybe do a whole set of armor, maybe even a few weapons, and work my way into other like electronics and stuff like that. But this Dragon Con's coming up is actually going to be pressing us for time. So this is going to be kind of...
It's a good time to start a documentary.
Yeah.
Under the gun.
Making basically 2 sets of armor and weapons for Dragon Age costumes. And it's going to be a real test of time and skill and effort to see if we can get it out on time. Because I know she really wants to get this thing done. And we're going to try, and like you said, he's going to do a lot of filming on it. And
We're gonna turn it into like a beautiful montage, like
Yeah.
a
They're gonna be so
80s
sick. It
movie.
is, yeah.
We're gonna do like Rocky.
I guess I'll just have to trust him, see how it comes out.
Yeah.
Running up and down the stairs with the cosplay.
Yeah.
What, through this whole process, you guys are designing this, and we've talked about it a lot. This is actually the first, yesterday was the first time the 5 of us who have contributed to this site for months have sat down at the same table for longer than a minute.
Yeah.
It is taxing. We're really trying to get a voice out there in the community. Like I said, there's a bunch of local artists and stuff. And these two just constantly work on stuff. It was amazing while we're trying to set up lighting and cameras and everything, they're already working on stuff. Like they immediately just drop everything. Like they pull the workday off them and they're just like, all right, it's time to, this is now what's important in their day. What is the hardest time to get motivated or to get started on a project? Where do you usually get, like, you feel like you're spinning the tires a little bit?
My problem is getting started, because I get really scared about cutting fabric or like making a pattern that I just kind of stare at it for a couple of hours before I even start on a project. once I get started, I'm good and I can continue to push through. But getting started is the worst for me, especially with making my own patterns, because I'm not that well experienced in sewing, and I've just actually really started using patterns myself, so drafting my own pattern is still pretty difficult, but getting started on that is really hard. So I set myself a time limit, like for Dragon Con. We wanted to start earlier than this, but I got sick, so we have a month left. We have a deadline. Having a deadline really kind of helps you push to get motivated, because then you start getting worried about the deadline coming up. So we have a deadline, and that makes us get started on things. So that's why we've already started kind of drafting patterns for all of our armor and things like that, because we really want to get these done for Dragon Con. And hopefully we can, otherwise this documentary is going to be all about us being at the bar.
Yeah, go to the Bay Bar right over there. Get yourself a Dr. Pepper, a Canadian baby.
I think my biggest, hardest point to get started
Yes, sir.
is the big lump sum of money that you got to spend.
Yeah.
No, that's the easy part.
I always hate having to spend money on the materials or whatever, and then
How much do you
knowing
know?
that after I spend it, I have to do this project, otherwise I just
You want
waste
how much
the
they
money.
don't really
I
spend.
want to know, like, yeah, I'm curious, like, how much do you guys
You don't keep
owe?
track, right? At that point,
No.
you start.
Like, do
start
you
rolling
have a
into-
budget that you start off with and then just go, oh, the hell with it, like, towards the end, or?
Our paychecks are budget.
Oh, no, that's not it. That's not it.
The paycheck to paycheck. No, we live cosplay to cosplay.
Well, we kind of like spread out our buying, so I'll tend to buy things throughout the year that I know that I want on a cosplay, so
Right.
that I don't end up spending a whole lump sum on a cosplay right before I make it. Like I've already bought my wig and stuff for Dragon Age. Like I bought that several months ago, so I've already started gathering materials. So I do try to budget myself a little bit, but I generally know that I don't want to go over $500 on a costume. So, and we've never gone over that. We've never even really come close to $500. But I think about the most we've spent on a costume is probably about $300.
Oh, wow.
So.
It's the time. I know that usually comes out. You were saying before, it's like everything's always last minute. You always have those last minute details you always fight with.
Yeah, you always have something last minute that you either forget. You're like, oh, I got time to work on this thing before the convention, or you just forget about it or whatever. But there's always something that you need to do like the night before. I tend to not try to do that to myself too much, because cosplay is kind of my outlet for stress, and I don't want to stress myself out to make a costume. So I try to give myself a couple of months for a cosplay. But
It doesn't sound like it when you're working on cosplay.
it doesn't. No, but
Lots of cussing comes from the sewing room.
Can you give us a demonstration of some of the
No,
cussing?
no.
Beep.
I don't think there's any.
we don't
There's no
have
small
the
children
beep
here.
sounds for that.
It's pretty rough.
This is in San Diego. We can swear.
I get scared. I ask her, can I enter the room for,
You guys have a good rapport that you're both. We recorded both rooms the other day, and totally different experiences in every room. Because there was a lot of swearing. You were curling wigs, and Jason is using a hot glue gun and Warblood, and he's just a pimp with it. He's just like this, he's so laid back, and he's making a piece of armor. He's like, yeah, this is good.
Show
It's
that.
fine.
Okay, that Jason's like that in his daily life, and I'm normally screaming and throwing things. So
And we run through that with a lot of the website. Like I said, we're still fairly new. Even the podcasting thing, there's different hurdles that we have to.
I do a lot of
We
screaming
jump
and
through.
yelling on the
We do a lot
podcast.
of, we do. It's a rough process. Anyone who's interested ever in doing the podcasting or blogging or running the website, the best advice I can give, and there's a great gentleman named Dakota Lopez out of, what's my name? There's a great gentleman by the name of Dakota Lopez. He runs a website called geekcritique.wordpress.com. He wants to become a .com, he isn't yet. And he was a big supporter in the beginning, and he said, anyone who wants to do this, the best advice they can give is just keep doing it. You're going to have rough months. We went from, you have a couple months where you hit 1,000 people on your website, or a couple hundred listening to podcasts, and the next week you have like 63 the first 2 days, and you're like, what did I do different? And it's not. It's just, especially this crowd, this community is so sometimes fickle of what captures our attention, but depending on what's on television or what's at the movies or what's online, of where they're spending their time. And you gotta kind of fight through it. So the blogging and podcasting, everything is easy, and you get past the initial, like you said, the investment. You have to buy a little by a little. Start with a laptop and a microphone. Then build to the better equipment and slowly kind of build and try to get where you're going to be. Don't get too far ahead of yourself, because we've run into that. We've run into hiccups where we're like, we're going to do this fantastic. MegaCon was a good barometer of that.
Yeah.
Where we're like, we're gonna
do all these things.
We have a week. We're gonna do video like Let's Plays, and we're gonna do a live feed. We didn't record till like the last
day after
Mega. You just don't run out of time.
I had to get back on a megabus the next morning at like 8 in the morning, and we were recording up until about what? Till 2 a.m.
About 2 a.m.
Yeah.
Because we had to record like 4 shows at once, and then it sits on my computer for a week, and I just stare at it, being like, all right, I gotta make a graphic for this. I gotta make music for this. I gotta do edits for this, and you just kind of push yourself through. And I have a great support group with these gentlemen and my wife and my friends, who, my friends your friends will be the best barometer. Some will just be like, I love it, it's great, love it. And then you have that 1 or 2 friends be like, hey, what you're talking about is stupid, you're wrong.
No questions right now, sir.
One's in the back. But you just kind of push through that. I guess you guys don't get, you guys are a very supportive thing, but when you put out a media or you put out your opinions, you're going to get some flack back, and you're going to get some rough roads ahead of you. But I tell everyone, just kind of do it. I'm someone, if you called me, or if you emailed me, or if you hit me up online and say, hey, I have an opinion about DC movies or Marvel movies, I will be the first one to be like, you want to talk about it online? Here's a mic. I'll give anyone a mic. If you have an art program, or if you're doing the cons or cosplay, we'll talk to everyone. We honestly do. It doesn't matter what skill level it is. It doesn't matter where you start or end or begin. We're trying to give the entire community a voice, because it's stronger voice. I see so many people do their own website and own podcast and own everything else. It's like, great, but if you group together and you band together and you find like-minded people, which isn't that hard, especially here. When we did MegaCon this year, we weren't on a website yet, and we were just doing the podcast, and we're like, hey, let's just start talking to artists and cosplayers.
Pretty much every contributor to our site, for the most part, we met at MegaCon.
We did, and it's amazing, like I said before, as soon as you start talking to people, they want to tell you their story. And there's so many amazing stories up there that you don't even have to listen to my podcast. I want you to. But if you go upstairs and just talk to people, you can hear so many amazing stories about where people are from, or why they do art forms, or how they did their art, or why they even do it. And if you ask them, well, how's this con? And a lot of people ask that. But they're a great barometer also to tell you what cons to go to and what cons not to go to. Like every single one, even you guys were like that. You're like, oh, yes, no, yeah. This is your first Tampa.
Yes.
And this con's been up and down. Weather's not been great.
Organizations.
The organization's been great here.
Yeah.
It's like a maze.
But you run into your challenges with every con we do. Big or small, and we did local art shows for some comic book shops. Crumb's World in Winter Garden, we had a show up there. Same day we went over to Gods and Monsters in Orlando that we're trying to work with, and they're still newer stores, they're still within the year, so they run into the same kind of things, being like, how do I get my name out there? How do I promote myself differently? Like, what are people doing that's different? And there's so many voices out there, it's hard to be heard. There's a lot of noise up on that floor. So it's hard for every individual artist. I talked to an artist today that I'm like, oh, I never saw her stuff before. I'm like, oh, it's really great. And then she tells me the last 5 cons she's been to, and I've been to every single one, and I've never seen her work before. And I'm kind of embarrassed when I do that, because that's what I'm here to do, is promote these kind of artists. And we're just trying to kind of do that more. It's hard to get your voice out there. I'll tell you.
Message from headquarters. This is a Rebellion production and is part of the Arcade Archives Network. That is all.